Hello, my name is Chris Harlow,
And I'm Toby Hurlbutt.
and we've spent the past year researching and analyzing a man who goes by the name of Walter White. Walter was once an ordinary father and husband who worked two jobs to support his family.
Aristotle states a tragic hero concerns the fall of a person whose character is good, believable, and consistent. Walter White was a good person. He was a high school chemistry teacher with a wife, son, and daughter on the way. He made an honest living and was a stereotypical 50-year-old suburban father until he was tragically diagnosed with lung cancer. Aristotle also says that the fall is caused in part by some error or frailty in the protagonist. After hearing the news, Walter took a gamble by cooking meth in order to pay for his expensive treatments as well as provide for his family after he was deceased. He had the best intentions, but in the end, this error in judgment was his tragic flaw and eventually led to his demise.
Aristotle also comments about the tragic hero that fear is evoked by our recognizing that it is someone like ourselves who encounters this misfortune. Walter was an ordinary man, just as us. However, a series of tragic decisions led to his downfall.
I was given the incredible opportunity to sit down with the man himself and give him a chance to explain his story. Mr. White, what a pleasure to finally meet you.
Say my name.
What?
Say my name.
Eisenberg?
God damn.
So, Mr. White, what do you think was tragic about your situation?
Well, I didn't really have any options. I was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer and didn't know where to turn. I wanted more than anything to be able to provide for my family, but my job wasn't enough. When Hank, my brother-in-law, indirectly showed me how much money was in the drug business, I thought that was my only option to provide for my family. And I know what I was doing was wrong, but what would you do in that situation? Just sit there helplessly waiting to die to only leave your family to nothing?
Mr. White, in your own opinion, what would you say was your tragic flaw?
I'd have to say in hindsight that my tragic flaw was my decision to cook meth in the first place. I obviously knew it was a dangerous thing to get into, but I made a life-changing decision to put the needs and welfare of myself and my family above obeying the law.
Do you think there is a piece of literature that you could relate this tragic flaw to?
I guess you could say my decision to cook is similar to Gatsby's decision in The Great Gatsby to enter the bootleg business. Even though we both engaged in illegal ventures for the promise of future wealth, Gatsby's decision was far more selfish than mine because he did it out of greed and desire to become rich, while I did it to provide for my family and pay for my medical expenses.
Mr. White, are you familiar with Freytag's Pyramid?
No, I wouldn't say I am.
Alright, well, I have a copy of it right here. Here, you can take a look at that right there. I just wanted to know if you think your story is more similar or differs from that.
Alright, well, first of all, I see there's a climax here. There wasn't really a climax, I would say, in
Your story?
my story, my reign, more or less. I had a rising action. I did come from the bottom of the meth business, but I worked my way up with like great meth. And so there was this climax, but my climax was for a good amount of time, even though it wasn't like a good thing. It was all terrible. It was bad. And my falling action occurred as soon as I got into the meth business. So it's more not like a triangle, it's like a parallelogram, more or less.
Nice.
And yeah. And so my moment of last suspense, I would say, would be with Jesse when, I'm not going to tell you that, you have to figure out, but in the end, it was bad. It was a catastrophe.
I understand.
And yeah, so Freytag's Pyramid, more like Heisenberg's pyramid.
Nice. So I understand you were in a very difficult situation. What actions did you take to get out of this situation?
You have to say recovery.
So, Mr. White, I understand you were in a very difficult situation, but what actions did you take to recover from the difficult situation and try to get out of it?
I never really tried to get out of it. It wasn't recovery. I took action and I saw that this was the best way to make money, and I needed money. These actions only ended up making my situation worse, but it was too late for me to give up. I wouldn't be giving up only on myself, but I'd be giving up on my family. With that being said, I would be lying if I said the power didn't get to me. Near the end of my time in my business, I could have left at any time with enough money to save 10 lifetimes, but I wouldn't. It wouldn't have been enough. There wasn't enough money in the world to match the sensation of power, and I guess you could say this indecisiveness was similar to Hamlet. I know you like literature. Hamlet's tragic flaw was not really an error or a mistake in judgment, but more of a lack thereof. And as I couldn't get out of this cruel and illegal business, Hamlet was able to take the initiative to avenge his father's death.
Thank you, Toby, and thank you, Heisenberg. Recently, I had the opportunity to sit down and talk to some of Walter White's closest people in his life. These include Jesse, his partner. Hello, Jesse.
So,
How was Walter viewed before and after his misfortune?
before, he was alright, I guess. Didn't know him too well. He was my chemistry teacher back in the day. He funked me. Pretty boring, to say the least. He seemed like a pretty straight-edge guy. Never did anything wrong. Not even close to what he is now. Once we started cooking, Walt began to change. In the beginning, all he seemed to care about was making enough money to provide for his family and pay his bills, but then things got out of hand. It became less about the money and more about the sense of power, you know? Bitch.
I also had the pleasure of interviewing Skylar White, Walter's wife. Hello. How was Walter viewed before and after his misfortune?
Oh, it was night and day. The Walt I knew was a loving and genuine husband and father. He worked hard to support our family by working 2 jobs and making an honest living. He never did anything wrong, and there wasn't an ounce of evil in his body.
What about after?
I don't know how it happened. One day he's teaching at a high school and working at a car wash, and the next he's cooking meth for one of the largest drug businesses in the world. After he was diagnosed with lung cancer, he was no longer the caring man I once knew and loved. It seemed as if all he knew or cared about was money and power and nothing else. He tries to tell me that everything he did was for our family, but I can't believe him. I mean, if he wanted to protect us, why would he bring constant fear and anxiety into our lives? From our time with Walter and speaking with some of the people who were close to him, we have drawn up a model of what we think is the new tragic hero. Walter White is a perfect example of someone who made a tragic mistake and in the end paid the price. Just as some of the previous tragic heroes, including Oedipus. With this being said, in many ways, Walter does not fit into the category of the old idea of a tragic hero.
Oedipus, one of the examples of the old tragic heroes, was of noble birth, while Walter White was born into a working-class family. And Oedipus never truly had to work for anything his entire life, and Walt had to work 2 jobs just to support his family. Oedipus's tragic flaw was that he killed a man at a crossroads because of his ignorance and pride. This man unfortunately turned out to be Oedipus's father. On the other hand, Walter's tragic flaw of entering the drug business was due to his selflessness and concern for his family. Lastly, when Oedipus reached his demise, he was so disgusted with himself that he stabbed his own eyes. Meanwhile, Walter knew all along what he was doing was wrong, yet his pride kept him from stopping.
Thus, in conclusion, we have decided that our new model of the tragic hero, the modern tragic hero, is someone who is at their wit's end and makes a desperate decision. They are a normal, common person whose decision is not for their own sake, but rather the benefit of others.
Go.
Therefore, our modern tragic hero is not some hero or some villain, but a normal person who is stuck in a difficult situation. Because of this difficult situation, they need to make a difficult choice that to some might be considered a bad choice. However, they experience the benefits of this bad choice for an extended period of time. And during this extended period of time, they're able to live fruitfully and not have to face the consequences of their decision. However, after an extended climax, they suddenly come to their downfall. And this is the time when all of their poor choices build up on one another and they crash down upon them.
Oh, just as Walter White's parallelogram.
Yes, exactly, with the extended climax and the sharp falling action.
Well, Chris, I think that's the end of our report.
Yep, it was a pleasure.
Yes, it was.
Stay classy, Santa Monica.